Will Smith rendered an infamous slap that was seen and heard around the world amongst millions of viewers during the Oscars. This violated the safe space of a disabled man, a man that has become a renowned comedian, actor, director, and writer, a man we come to know as Chris Rock. The results that I will share with you will be very revealing as well as shocking. And in many cases, it may be discerning. Let me tell you how. Hello, my name is Dr. Marla Crawford. I am a registered quality mental health professional for adults and children. I currently hold a degree in psychology, specializing in applied behavior analysis. In addition to those credentials, I also hold a PhD in special education leadership. With these credentials, this confirms that I am qualified to speak about this issue and render my professional opinion.
You may ask, what does this infamous smack in the face, this smack, a slap, however we choose
to call it, that was seen and heard around the world at the Oscars, have to do with who Chris Rock is as a man and as a person? Well, this plays a great deal as to who Chris Rock really is as a person and in his wholeness. Chris Rock was diagnosed with nonverbal learning disorder. Nonverbal learning disorder is a unique diagnosis. It is not a common diagnosis, especially in adults. This disability causes difficulty with motor, visual, spatial, and social skills. Although individuals that have been diagnosed with nonverbal learning disorder, they speak well and they're high functioning, they struggle with subtle social cues. They struggle with comprehension of abstract concepts. These individuals tend to have the inability to read nonverbal social cues such as facial expression and body language. What does that mean? If it's not concrete in terms of what it is, they may not connect with what they're seeing. Individuals that have been diagnosed with nonverbal learning disorder, they also struggle with identifying and understanding sarcasm. And in many cases, these individuals do not recognize and identify the emotions of others. And this can be a hindrance to them, especially when it comes to building long, productive relationships. What is nonverbal learning disorder? Nonverbal learning disorder can sometimes be misunderstood for autism because the characteristics that the individual demonstrates are parallel or consistent with the characteristics of individuals that have been diagnosed with autism. There is a continuous misdiagnosis or non-diagnosis, nonverbal learning disorder. Why is this? Because the autism spectrum has a wide range of characteristics that overlap with other forms of disability. Clinicians and researchers tend to consider nonverbal learning disorder and autism spectrum disorder to be one and the same, just because of the characteristics. And let's keep in mind, we have been looking into autism a great deal over the past 10 or so years. It is a disability that has increased dramatically, especially amongst our children. When you look at the two disorders, their characteristics overlaps to the point that when you think of autism and you think of non-verbal learning disorder, you tend to connect it with someone that is autistic and high functioning. And we tend to identify that person as having Asperger's because they are high functioning. And they often all tend to have some moments where they're not articulating or they can't express what is happening or what's going on. Let's talk about how nonverbal learning disorder can be an expensive price to pay for individuals, especially adults. Nonverbal learning disorder presents an ongoing challenge and difficulties comprehending unsaid information or drawing reasonable conclusions about what is happening or why something has taken place, especially if the individual that has been diagnosed with this disability does not have concrete information that is told directly to them. They tend not to operate in the broader scheme of things. Things tend to have to be very specific. Now, can they comprehend abstract information? They can, but the chances that they will connect with it immediately is very slim because that's just the characteristics that they have. The conclusions that they may come with may be unreasonable because they cannot connect to the particular events that may have occurred. So we have to keep that in mind when we're thinking about these individuals that have been diagnosed with nonverbal learning disorder. The expensive price tag that come with having this disability is a lifetime of feeling odd, hopeless, and can sometimes lead to mood disorders, anxiety, and low self-esteem. And it can really push the individual into a place of isolation where they're not connecting or they're not able to communicate as one would like them to. There are also ongoing challenges with comprehending unsaid information, as I previously stated, and drawing reasonable conclusion without being told directly. This is a great price to pay, especially when you go into your adulthood and you still do not have these necessary skills to connect with those that are around you, when you're unable to connect and maintain long, sustainable relationships. It makes it difficult to have intimate, lasting relationships. And when I say intimate, lasting relationship, sometimes when we have people in our lives, because we don't communicate, we don't express certain things, or we don't say, I understand, this diagnosis can be a detriment to that relationship when we can't do that. And that's one of the adverse impact of having a nonverbal learning disorder. These disabled individuals tend to want things concrete and told to them specifically. Don't expect them to figure it out because they're going to say, I don't know what you're talking about. And it may be confrontational because the individual that they're communicating with may become frustrated, and then they may become frustrated themselves. So let's think about the expensive price these individuals can pay over a lifetime. How does this nonverbal learning disorder relates to Chris Rock? Let me tell you how. Chris Rock was diagnosed with this disorder, and it has everything to do with the man that we have come to know in the entertainment world. Through his work as a comedian, an actor, a writer, and a producer, he has been able to build acceptable social relationships and sustain them because his talents in this field of comedian, acting, has afforded him a safe space to connect with a diverse population. What does that mean? Because he can act very well, because he is a strong, viable comedian, he's a stellar writer and producer. That is the skills that covers what's going on in the inside of the individual. And he reverts to that to create a safe space, but it also helps him to build relationships. And many times people think they have built long, strong, sustaining relationships with him, but technically they have not. They built a relationship with the professional, not the person. In most cases, Chris Rock's talent has masked his underlying disability. Non-verbal learning disorder can be supported through occupational therapy, as well as ABA supports and services and interventions. What is ABA? Applied Behavior Analysis. The thing about this particular support and services that are available to all individuals, we tend to limit it to children with autism. But ABA supports and services is appropriate for any individual. Even if you have difficulties with organization, communication, being attentive, having the appropriate social response, it does not limit itself to autistic individuals, and it does not limit itself to individuals with disabilities because it covers such a broad range. Now, I want to let you know, although occupational therapy and ABA supports and services are things that can be utilized to help and support individuals that have been diagnosed as nonverbal learning disorder or any disability, is that none of these services are guaranteed because a lot of it takes place on the individual or the client and who they are, as well as how the supports and services are delivered. But these are not the only two that are available. There are a vast number of supports and services that are available. But I just wanted to name a couple so that you have an idea that there is help, there is support. We can meet the needs to help these individuals to connect with others, to build relationships, to have appropriate responses, to navigate and to sustain themselves in society amongst groups of people. The trauma behind this infamous slap by Will Smith on Chris Rock. This event posed a detriment possibly or a long-lasting trauma on Chris Rock. It can allow and afford Chris Rock to constantly relive and experience the trauma of being bullied, teased, and not being accepted when he was a child in school. He struggled. There were difficulties with relationship. He was isolated in some cases. He did not feel accepted. He had bouts of low self-esteem. There were areas of anxiety, feeling hopeless, not knowing what to do, not being able to express what was happening to him. And it became so unbearable that he dropped out of school. But I must say, he eventually went and got a GED because he understood the value of completing some form of education. He knew that he had to complete high school. So he got an equivalence to a high school diploma, which is a GED. Reliving this experience is more than likely putting Chris in a space of isolation. How do I know this? Because individuals with nonverbal learning disorder tend to struggle with processing unexplained events, meaning that if it's an event that was not planned, that was not understood it was going to take place, it became an abstract act with no reasoning or understanding with it. So it takes time to process the information. And that's where Chris Rock finds himself in this bout of trauma from being slapped by Will Smith. At his age, he is still trying to process what has happened. And many of us say, well, that shouldn't be difficult. It may not be difficult for you or for myself, but an individual such as Chris Rock, which has been diagnosed as with a nonverbal learning disorder, processing an abstract event can be very challenging. With this trauma, I want you to understand this is not something that is easy to deal with, because how do you explain it? How do you articulate it? How do you express what you're feeling if you can't even process what has truly happened to you? Now, what brought this trauma about? A joke. The one joke, the joke that Chris Rock gave on Jada Smith Pickett. I want you to know it was clear that he did not have any ill intent or intent to harm her. He started off because he knew that he deviated from the script, but being the talent that he is, he knows how to bring the laughter on by what he see and what he know. So it doesn't take long for him to bring about a joke. He's good at that. He's a genius with it. So what did he do? The first thing he said, Jada, I love you. That tells me right then and there, he was not going to harm her. He was not intended to disrespect her or disrespect her husband, Will Smith, because he expressed his feelings for her and how he felt about her. But he was also letting her know, I love you, but I'm getting ready to hit you with a joke. But he did it very subtle. He did not know she had a medical diagnosis of alopecia. Keep in mind, Chris Rock did a documentary on women and their hair. So he understands the beauty, the purpose, the connection women have to their hair. But if you think about it, there are a lot of women that are wearing very close haircuts or even wearing the baldness now. And I must say, Jada Pinkett is wearing it very well. And I didn't know she had alopecia myself until this whole thing blew up about what happened at the Oscars. But I will tell you this, there was no intent to harm Jada Pinkett or disrespect Will Smith, because think about the lasting relationship they had over the years. But individuals have allowed the profession to bring a division. Now let's talk about that joke that led to this infamous slap in the face by Will Smith on Chris Rock. I want you to know that, again, it's an opportunity to see additional skills and talents from Jada Pinkett Smith. She'll be an excellent person in that role. But as I was stating, what does this mean in a nutshell? Will Smith slapped a disabled man, and that slap went public. Chris Rock shared his disability with the world some time ago, approximately a year or so ago. He shared it with the world. Will Smith's aggressive behavior was an attack on the very thing that allowed Chris Rock to be successful, to build connections and relationships. Because keep in mind, he's building long-lasting or sustaining relationship, not based on the person he is. He's building it based on his talents. He's building those relationships based on being a comedian, an actor, a writer, and a director. And I promise you, those individuals in his life, he may have one or two or very few that may connect with him on a personal level other than his children, because relationships is not something that he sustains very well because of the abstract, the inability to comprehend abstract situations, events that are not concrete in terms of why they are occurring. He doesn't have that, he doesn't demonstrate those particular skills when it comes to communicating certain things that he feels. And then sometimes he can communicate what he's thinking, but it may sound kind of abrupt May sound kind of harsh because he's very concrete. Tell him what it is. Tell him like it is. And that's how he communicates. But it's going to be very seldom that you're going to get that deep down inside. You're going to get that man behind the mask. You're going to be very seldom you're going to get that man under all that camouflaging that he does with being a comedian, an actor, a director, and a writer. It takes a unique individual to connect with him in that space because he has to have a safe space. And right now, his safe space is in his entertainment that he presents, in his acting, his comedy, his writing. That's where he creates his safe space on the stage before the public. So that means that's how he flourished in our society, using that talent. But he still has difficulty processing information. If you think about what he has related to the public, right after the award ceremony, he did a show in Boston. He went straight to comedy. You know why? Because comedy is a safe space and he can jump right into character. That's what he's doing. He's jumping into character and he's sort of still processing it internally. He has yet to process what took place in the inside because it was unexpected. It was not planned. He didn't understand why would Will Smith want to slap him. He's been knowing him all his life as a comedian. They have had long-lasting careers in the professional world. The assault on him was not making sense, and he's not processing it. And that's one of the reasons why Chris Rock did not press charges with the authorities, because the disability that he has, the inability to sustain relationship, to make the connections and really move forward on certain events that occur, does not permit him to even want to entangle with authorities such as the police and all that it involves. Because keep in mind, being an individual with a nonverbal learning disorder, not only does he has difficulty with processing information and social cues, he doesn't contend with abstract moments, but he also is still living with the trauma that he's probably reliving being abused by other students in terms of being bullied, teased, and picked on. That's a form of abuse by other children. So you got to think about it. In order for him to drop out of school, he had to feel that the adults were not helping him. So right now, doing something legal is not on his radar. He's still trying to make sense of what happened and why, because it's not connecting. And again, that's his safe space because he reverts right back to comedy. So I challenge organizations that support the disabled individuals, advocates that advocate for disabled individuals, educators, psychologists, counselors, doctors, political figures, parents. I challenge all of the community, all of the world. I challenge the entire world to take time out to learn about our vulnerable population. Take time out to learn more about nonverbal learning disorder and see how we can embrace them, these individuals, see how we can help them to sustain themselves, because Chris Rock is a model for individuals with nonverbal learning disorder. He has taken his skills and his talents and allowed himself to be successful, to become a valuable member in society, to contribute to society, to have an importance and a voice. I would love to see him have a voice in this process about this disability, because he can be an excellent spokesperson on how he's able to deal with it through his career choices. Again, my hat's off to Chris Rock, because he found success in spite of having a disability such as nonverbal learning disorder. And Chris Rock, I want you to know Dr. Crawford understands you and she gets you. And you keep doing what you're doing and you're going to be just fine. Thank you.